Kia ora. In today's news, the government's moving forward with welfare reforms, having passed the first reading of new legislation in Parliament this afternoon. The bill applies work obligations to those on sickness benefits, introduces drug testing requirements, cuts payments for beneficiaries with outstanding arrest warrants, and imposes social obligations on beneficiary parents. Around 1,000 people gathered in Christchurch last night asking for a change in government plans for the running of ECan and for the region's schools. Canterbury University lecturer Bronwyn Hayward says there's a feeling it's a bulldozer piece of legislation.
While it was a concern about the speed with which changes are being proposed, there was also kind of a new energy in the city, a very wide sense of concern but also positiveness.
Judges have reserved their decision following today's Court of Appeal hearing on the Kim.com saga. Crown lawyers representing the US have challenged a High Court ruling that forces them to disclose their case ahead of .com's extradition hearing. But .com's legal team says that decision should be upheld in the interests of a fair trial. There are fresh rules for a new governor of the Reserve Bank, but the old policy targets remain largely similar. Minister Bill English says the 1 to 3% inflation band has worked, but there's an additional focus on keeping it at 2%.
We believe the current framework has served New Zealand well, so there's been only minor adjustments.
The Minister of Labour has announced new measures for the tourism industry and to help prevent drug and alcohol-related accidents. From mid-December this year, adventure tourism operators will face stronger aviation and maritime regulations, including an explicit requirement to monitor and manage safety risks associated with drug or alcohol impairment. It was found that the pilot of the balloon which crashed in Carterton had cannabis in his system at the time of his death, and 2 of the jump masters killed in the Fox Glacier skydive crash had taken cannabis prior to the fatal flight. Chatham Islands residents had a long wish list for the Prime Minister when he visited for the first time today. Local MP Labour's Annette King says the islands have had many young people flock to Australia and is in urgent need of infrastructure upgrades.
In the electricity generation, the redevelopment of the Waitangi Wharf and a breakwater and the resealing of their runway.
Genus Science has had problems with its earthquake alert system. It sent out false alarms about 2 earthquakes, one west of Auckland, the other west of Opunake. The alert for Auckland has since been confirmed as a magnitude 2.7 south of Oxford in North Canterbury. The Conservative Party has praised Australia's parliamentarians for voting overwhelmingly against the same-sex marriage bill. The bill, sponsored by a Labour backbencher, received 98 votes against it, compared to 42 in favour. The Conservatives' Colin Craig says while Australia's politicians have refused to make unnecessary changes to the definition of marriage, our Parliament is focused on promoting a liberal social agenda over economic development. Meanwhile, the Australian Christian lobby has thanked the MPs who voted against the bill. ACL's Lyle Shelton says it's time to move on.
I think MPs were mature enough to see through that, having had 2 parliamentary inquiries into it, and this is having surveyed their electorates, picked up the vibe of what their constituents were saying, and also Tony Abbott's coalition have had a clear policy and kept that election promise. I think realistically the steam will go out of this campaign.
Ka nui ngā karare matua mai te whare korero o rima, mori ora.